Hello.
Excellent.
So basically, the thing is, I'm in Singapore, okay,
Oh, okay.
and I was asleep, basically, to be honest,
Mm,
because it's 2 a.m. in the morning.
I'm so sorry, but I mean,
No
I
problem.
guess when we scheduled this,
When we scheduled this, I was not supposed to be in Singapore.
no. So I have a couple things I'm going to talk to you about. I'll just email you after the webinar, okay? And we can discuss.
Okay.
We've got a couple training gigs coming up and
Hey,
some
Kim and
MCs.
Tiago, I
Yes?
think I think you're not muted.
N- No, I think
It said the webinar has started.
Hmm.
I thought it said attendees are in listen only mode.
Yep, they are. That means they can hear you.
Oh, okay. I didn't click anywhere.
Folks, we're actually going to wait just a couple more minutes for the rest of the team to get on. It's probably be about 5 minutes before we start the presentation.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Tiago Costa, and I'm going to deliver today's webinar. That is, how can we basically getting started with Microsoft Office 365, but in the developer perspective. So, doing my presentation, my name is Tiago Costa. I work as an independent contractor. I'm also an MVP on Office servers and services, which includes Office 365 and also SharePoint. I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer for many, many years, more than 12 years currently, and I'm also a regional lead from the MCT group too. So I work as a consultant. So I consult in certain companies, and I also train. I try to balance it the 50-50 ratio, so that I really like to train and I really like to deliver these kinds of webinars. It's something that I have a huge passion on, but I also like to be in the field. So you have all my contacts in here, so my basically how to reach me, etc. So even after the webinar, you reach and you have like some questions or something, just tweet me about it. Then I will try to help you the most that I can. Talking about Wintellect core services, so Wintellect is basically a company that provides not only training but also consulting and also training, as I was saying too, and also on-demand training. Some of the professionals that work in the company, they are very high-end consultants and professionals. So, and some of them uh, already wrote even some books. In the case around like 30 of them. Some Microsoft related highlights about the company, about Wintellect. It's a gold Azure partner. He won the Gold Partner Award for the US in WPC. Is CEO. It's also a Microsoft Regional Director. Also has the DevOps Competence Partner. It's also a software development partner, a Xamarin Premium Consulting Partner. So it's really a lot of certifications in just one company. So you can really trust on the work of such professionals. I always start my presentations as like a small, let's just say something more fun as an icebreaker, and this is this is something that really happened to me one time, and if it's really something that I always tell to people, if you really have huge problems waking up in the morning and coffee doesn't work for you, so well, try to wake up because someone deleted a table in production or something like that, and you will see that you will wake up for sure. You don't need coffee that day. So today, what is the agenda for today? So we'll have basically here an overview about Office 365 and what it is, and basically what's important for the developer workspace. Then we are going for the Office 365 development environment. So what is the kind of development environment that we have? How should we work with, etc. Then we go talk a little bit about development models, and then some resources that you might want to have after this webinar. So doing here properly a small overview. So Office 365 is one of the fastest businesses in terms of growth that Microsoft has. It really has a huge grow in terms of the number of subscriptions, number of users that it has, etc. And I see a lot of people doing something on Office 365, which is they create their tenants, they do some project to do the migration of the email. So they usually have some kind of email server. Let's just say that they have Exchange, for example. So they will have some Exchange professionals doing the migration of the email, they mailboxes, etc. Then they go for SharePoint to just do the same thing. So they usually migrate SharePoint. They start to work with some products like Microsoft Teams. They start to work with, for example, OneDrive, Skype for Business. But there is really one thing that I'm really not seeing that many companies to do, is that after that phase, after they are into Office 365, they still do and deliver applications like in the good old days. So let's create a web application totally outside Office 365, and let's just create the web application as we were creating the web applications like many years ago. So there is not usually an integration with the data that we have on Office 365. And there is always there is a very catchy phrase too that says that the data is the new oil. And we usually talk about those companies like LinkedIn, like Facebook, that they really make their bucks using the data that people produce in the platforms. But as a company, we also produce data. We also produce a lot of data. And in Office 365, usually we have customers producing a lot of data. Why don't we make use of that data too? It's there, it's ours. We have access to that data. And so this is where this webinar is important, so that we may be aware of stuff that we can do in Office 365. So I don't know if you know this person, but I think he has like some kind of position in Microsoft that he can make some and take some decisions, and people make sure that these decisions are taken into actions. So basically, Staya said a few, like 2 years ago, that the most strategic developer surface for Microsoft will be Office 365. And and really it is. And really Microsoft put a lot of investment bucks on this, and really produce a very cool environment for us to make use of it. And still, I still see a lot of companies not making use of such environment. So talking about numbers, currently on Office 365, we have around 100 million active subscribers. So by a subscriber, we mean that is a user, a paying user that logs in at least one per month. And those users are users that are using Office 365 every day. And we can imagine that, let's just imagine some of you probably already also use Office 365 and in your companies, and basically you work with Office 365 all day long. You have the email open, or you have SharePoint, or you are on Teams or Skype. So you're always connected to Office 365 in some way. And my idea is, so if people are already inside Office 365, why should I create something outside, okay, outside Office 365? So this is the opportunity here. So there is some studies that says that people usually take 2 to 3 hours, an office worker, 2 to 3 hours a day inside the office apps. So that's the basically the average that we have. Of course, we have, well, as you can see there, mobile devices. They are basically everywhere. Just let's just say that. So in terms of numbers, they basically have estimation that by the end of 2018, we will have around 1.8 billion devices, and probably your users will also have a device. So and let's just say that in the United States, in Europe, Asia, well, everyone has a device. Okay, so all the workers will have some kind of device to use. So that's another opportunity that we have. And then we have around 1 billion plus users of Office, not Office 365, but the regular Office. So that is also another chance, because the apps that I can build, I can also build applications that will run not only on Office 365, but also inside Word, inside Excel, inside Outlook, etc. So talking about a developer vision that we have in here. So we always start to have what? Users. So users will start to use our applications, etc. And the other side, I have the data. So I have emails, I have files, I have profile data, I have to do tasks, I have JSON files, I have database, I have really all sorts of data. And my idea when I build an application is to basically connect all of this, so all of this data with my users. In terms of developer vision, so this is basically the status of it today. So we have uh, basically the option to extend here on the table on the left, our Office everywhere. So I can extend Delve, Excel, all the tools like PowerPoint, SharePoint, Video Portal, Word, Yammer, etc. You name it. Also, I can build my applications and then put my applications also on my apps portal. And so when you go to my apps, you can see not only the Office 365 apps that you're used to see, like, oh, I just put there a favorite like Excel and my sites of SharePoint and OneDrive code and OneNote. Those are just the ones that I use the most. So why not your HR application to ask for holidays and holiday approval? Why not to have there your CRM option, your CRM application, etc. So yeah, you can do that too. And of course, when you code an application, then you can make that application also available to the people that use your application in the My Apps portal. And it's pretty cool, because, well, companies today, they have hundreds, or well, at least dozens of applications, and people are like, oh yeah, where's that application to do this? Where's the URL of that application? And they usually feel a little bit lost. So we have something on Office 365 that can provide like an application directory. So why not use them? So that's to start, just something that we can do. Then connect to the Office 365 services. So we have what we call the Microsoft Graph today. And with the Microsoft Graph, I can reach basically almost everywhere inside Office 365. The Microsoft Graph today is still a work in progress in some areas, like, for example, inside Microsoft Teams. It's still not a finished product for sure. We still need a lot of other options. There are still things that I can't do using the graph, but it's just a matter of time that Microsoft will just launch those features. So the graph is a REST API that I can use to reach all that data, and I can interact with all that data. But now the good part. So what do I need to build this? As you can see, there are a lot of non-Microsoft logos here on the right, sorry. Of course, I can just still do stuff in .NET Core, but I can also use Python, Rails, PHP, Node.js. I can build applications, native applications for Android or for iOS, and well, all of them will be supported. So after this, I just build an application. Let's just imagine let's imagine in Python, for example, or PHP or Node.js. Now I need to host it. The recommendation, of course, is to host it on Microsoft Azure, just because, well, Office 365 will run on a Microsoft cloud, and well, with Azure we can just reach uh, very low latency to Office 365. But of course, you can always tell, oh, but I'm using Office 365, but I'm using another cloud, like for example AWS or Google Cloud. That's fine. Just use that. Okay, that's totally fine. Microsoft will not block you from using that. So you can still use your own already public cloud that you're using, because you just take the decision to choose another provider. That's just fine. Even if you say, oh, I'm using Office 365, but I'm not into a cloud yet, so I'm still running all my applications on-prem, so I can't use this. No, you can. You can also use it even if you're running your applications on-prem. So there's not a problem on that. Basically, just your application just need to have, of course, connection to the Office 365. And of course, it will always have the connection, because it needs to grab the data from there, it needs to post data there, etc. So that you can have that kind of integration, you need the connection, but that's all. Okay, you can still run stuff on prem. I can tell you, like, I have a customer that they are going to move to the cloud soon, but they're still running certain things on prem, and one of them were this kind of application. So they make that decision. Of course, I personally don't agree with it. I think they should already be on the cloud. They don't have any compliance issues going to the cloud, but that was their decision. And we did some applications for them, and they are still running them on prem. And soon enough, we're going to migrate them to the cloud. Okay, I can't wait for the day, but when we do this part, okay, that will be kind of a easy migration for us. It will not be complex. It one of those works, one of those tasks that, yeah, it's a lot of work to do, etc. But it's not complicated. It's not complex. It's pretty simple, to be honest. Okay. So talking about developer tools. So what we have on developer tools. So one of the first things that we need is a Microsoft Office 365 developer tenant. So currently you can set up one for free if you go to this link that I just posted there, aka.ms developer program sign up. I'm going to demo this later on, but of course the you can also subscribe by $99 a year for one user. This will provide you the option to create your applications and to debug the applications. If you already have a subscription, a developer, a regular tenant, sorry, a regular tenant, you can always create, okay, for example, for SharePoint, a developer site collection, so that then we can debug things onto it. Then we also need usually a Microsoft Azure subscription. This, if we need to have a place where to deploy our stuff, our applications. I usually recommend Azure. I already told you the why, because of the latency issues. It's pretty low, the latency there. So we can also sign up for a trial, okay, and just use your MSDN credits if you already have a subscription, etc. So this is something that you can also use. So you can set up a trial for a month, and you get $200 on it, which is more than enough just to try out Azure to start. You can also then use, if you have an MSDN account, you have, I think it's $165 per month of credits sitting there. So if you're not using, start using them. And then, of course, we're talking about having Visual Studio. And talking about having Visual Studio, currently the recommended versions to work with this will be the 2015 and 2017. With this saying, I'm not saying that, oh no, you can't work with the other versions. Well, they work too with like 2013 too, but this one comes with the tools already installed, so you really don't need to install anything. You just install Visual Studio, and boom, there you go. You have already the Office 365 tools installed. So we really don't need to be worried about installing something else on top of Visual Studio. Now it just comes fully prepared for what we need. We can even go for the community edition. The community edition is totally free. It has some blocks. So not all the people can just use community edition, so be careful with that. So there are certain limitations in terms of the revenue of the company and the number of people that can use the community edition. But it is totally free if you use community edition for training. So at least in a training phase, you can use it. You can use the community edition, and then you just will solve your licensing issues with Microsoft, and you would license the full version of Visual Studio. Also, the 2013, if you still want to use that, that's fine. But in here, like I was saying, you need to install something else. You need to download the Office Developer Tools for Visual Studio. So just download it, install it. It's not that it's like hugely trouble to install. This is pretty small, the package, and it's pretty easy to install. I never had an issue installing this, and I installed this, dozens of times. But yeah, it's still something that I need to install. Other tools and tips to work. So not only Visual Studio, of course, I can still use, like, if I'm like more on the Java space, can you use Eclipse? Of course you can. Can I use even Notepad to do with other tools? Of course you can, or you can just use basically the IDE that is you're more comfortable in. The thing is that Visual Studio will have tools to connect directly, okay, to Office 365. So it will help us in that part. But we have other tools and services, like, for example, Visual Studio Team Services, to basically do the source saving of all of the code that we are creating, but also to basically do all the CI and CD, so continuous integration and continuous development ALM processes. And then we can have like automated builds, automating testing on our applications, etc. So it's pretty awesome what I can do with Team Services. Teams Foundation Server, so the on-prem version of VSTS, yeah, you can still use that too, okay? And I'm not putting here a version, but usually we are talking about one of the latest versions. So I will say 2015, 17 year are the recommended ones for you to use. Talking about where to host this, so my recommendation is totally on Azure App Services. So the basically a web app. I'm just creating a web application, then I will just deploy my web application on this PaaS offering that we have on Azure. So we don't need to have the basically the trouble and to just create virtual machines and then manage the OSs. We just go for the PaaS offering. Other two tools, basically Postman and Fiddler, they are here just to do the same thing. You can just choose one of them. So sometimes, for example, when I need to integrate stuff with Microsoft Graph, I still need to test out. So if I just do this kind of request, an HTTP request, what I'm going to get, and Postman will basically remove all the complexity of your application, and it'll just really straightforward do the call. And then you can find if you have a problem in your application or if it's the request that is not well formatted, and then you can fix it, and it's pretty cool what we can do. And to be honest, I really prefer Postman because it's just simpler and in terms of UI and everything. Fiddler is a more complete product. You can do other stuff than Postman doesn't do, but to be totally honest with you, most of the times I have both installed on my machine, and I don't open Fiddler that much. I just use Postman all the time. And then a big tip in here. So always use, but really always use the in private or incognito browsers. If you work with me, like for example, I have access to currently more than a dozen of Office 365 tenants, then plus my own where I do my work, etc. So the thing is, you start to have a lot of users and basically stored in your session, and it's a mess, to be honest with you. So I usually only have on my regular browser my own working user, and all the other ones that I need when I'm coding something, when I'm developing something for a customer, I usually use in private or incognito browsers, depending on your browser of preference. Talking about browsers, This works pretty well on Edge and on Chrome. Also works on other browsers too pretty well, but at least those two I can vouch for. It's the ones that I mostly use, and I think that mostly of you will also have one of those. So talking about Visual Studio Team Services, we have 5 basic users for free, unlimited stakeholders, unlimited team projects. We can use version control, Git.tfs. We also have agile project management on this. We can also get continuous integration, build services, and also load testing, all in the same product. And this, with all those features, we really can create here an ALM process that is pretty cool and pretty interesting for our solutions. And this is free. You just need to go and then basically register a new account on this. You will basically register a domain that is the what you have chosen .visualstudio.com, and then there you go. You just need to put that URI on the on the Visual Studio, so that you need to connect to a source control system, and it will detect that is Visual Studio Team Services and just ask you a username and a password. So you can have up to 5 basic users there. If you need more, you need to pay for those users. If you have, for example, an MSDN account, that MSDN account does not count for those 5 users. So they can join, and you are not going to be charged by them because you're already paying for the MSDN. Setting up the environment, so we signed up for an Office 365 subscription. We get our developer site collection. We sign up for an Azure subscription so that we can have where to host our applications. And then I will always say that you should link both your Office 365 with your Azure Active Directory. Basically, the idea is because, should be the same domain, okay, that you will have on your Azure and your own Office 365. So Office 365 uses Azure Active Directory for storing and managing all the users, authentications, etc. And you should have just the same thing in both of them, so that when you deploy an application for your Microsoft Azure subscription, you're just using the same tenant. It's not that is like mandatory, but just a recommendation, okay? So usually we get something like this if we go for the Azure from the Office 365 portal and you have your credentials. So just sign up, just click there where it says sign up for Microsoft Azure, and then basically you just prompt, okay, with all the steps, and it's pretty straightforward usually. So I would advise at the start, just create a free trial, then create a pay-as-you-go subscription, but in the meantime, you have 30 days to decide what kind of subscription you want. Depending on our company, of course, pay-as-you-go can be a little bit expensive. If you have like already an enterprise agreement or something like that, you can get better rates. So linking to Office 365 in Azure, there you go. We just do this steps, and we get the basically to link both directories. Okay, so we can just have the custom create, and then we just select add an existing directory, and we can just add the existing directory, and we don't need to build a new one. So let's do a demo. Okay, let's do here, create a developer tenant. So let me just do this. So let me just open here. So let me just zoom in this a little bit. So this is the URL that I just that I just had on the slides, and oops. So if you just open that URL, which is the aka.ms, then dev program sign up, you will get to this page, and then it's pretty straightforward. Okay, you just need to click here where it says join now, and then just use a Microsoft account. It can be even a consumer Microsoft account, and then you can I'm sorry, it's just moving on without I'm clicking anywhere. And then you can just move on and just register your tenant. You can also do another thing, which is you can just, and I can also provide this in the end in the chat window. That is another link, and this will basically go straight forward, okay, to the sign up offer. So you can create a free trial also for your Office 365 Enterprise trial. And in my case, it says that I'm already connected. So let me just do something in here. Let me open another browser because I already created one for timing concerns. I was not going to create during the webinar. So let me open here another one. It just says that I have another one in private. Okay, this is weird. It should open a form, okay, for us to fill in. But let me see if I can do it in here. Oh, well, in here it will just open a form. Okay, I'm not going to try to fix this now. And then we just need to follow the instructions. It's pretty simple, and one of the instructions is you need to select a domain. So in my case, I selected the domain that's called webinarscene.onmicrosoft.com. So you should have something pretty, let's just say that it's around your company, so that you can have your own, okay, your own Office 365 tenant. So we can get a free trial. That free trial, you get 25 users for free, E3 for a full month. So the problem in creating developer accounts is that the developer tenants is that you only get one user. And the problem with one user is that if you want to try out, for example, a scenario where you have one user that has certain permissions, another one that will have other kind of permissions, etc. So it's kind of hard with just one user. So usually we need more than one user for that. So moving on with our slides. So talking about development models. So we have different development models in here. So in the good old days, we used to do farm solutions. Farm solutions are solutions that are totally, basically you can do whatever you want on them. They were very connected to SharePoint. And with the start of the cloud, Microsoft started to have other options, like, for example, sandboxed solutions, which were a little bit more restricted. So I couldn't do everything on them. And I could also not, I had some other limitations in terms of consumption. So if I was consuming too many resources, then my solutions will just stop. Then Microsoft, with the launch of Office 2013 and the big update that we had from the 210 UI to the 2013 UI. So we basically started to have something that we call add-ins. So our add-ins, they will not run inside the boxes that are running the service. They will usually run using JavaScript, so they usually are running in the client, and then we have REST endpoints that then will consume the data from the service based on those endpoints. But the data, but the applications by itself, so the add-in, we call it add-ins, will run on the browser. It's a pretty cool model, by the way, but I see a lot of people using them, and for the cloud, the problem is that you can't just run farm solutions, and even sandboxed solutions is not very recommended too, because it's like Microsoft can't handle with all the farm solutions from everyone. And if someone just builds something that it's not, let's just say, performant enough, it will affect all the service. So we do not want that. So add-ins is really the answer for all of that. And more lately, we have SPFX, so SharePoint Framework, as another model that we have also to run and create our applications. And this is pretty cool because it makes us work with a lot of open source tools. So if you're like a old school Microsoft developer that you're not used to working with open source technologies and open source development tools, you will have some struggle in the beginning. I have to confess that I had that too. But after a while, it's not a big deal. So we are IT professionals, we are developers, we can handle this. It's just a matter of learning. And one of my favorite models is to use basically to use the Microsoft Graph. So the Microsoft Graph It's basically a REST endpoint that I can just eat, okay, and then I can just consume that data. We have a demo on those. So talking about add-ins, so add-ins, we have the principle to be open and flexible. They have also to enable some consistency into our development platform. It's not just we can code wherever we want. There has to be some consistency on them. And of course, we can run those add-ins and we can integrate them like almost everywhere. And they are pretty much aware also. They start to be aware also of the mobile first experience. So we always need to provide them, and then it's just CSS and HTML. Of course, we need to do that magic behind the scenes, but they are pretty much developed also for a mobile world. So I can build an add-in, for example, and I can say, oh, it's an add-in for Excel. And that add-in for Excel will run on Excel desktop, so the desktop version of Excel that we usually have installed on our machines. But it also will run, that add-in will also run on the Excel Online. So if you have the browser version, this one will also run there. And even if you have, for example, Excel on your mobile phone, if you have like an Android device or iOS or a Windows mobile device, so in all those three, your add-in will also run, which is quite interesting. And comparing a little bit with, for example, the more old style VBA applications, well, the VBA application will not run on the cloud. So if you have an Excel with VBA, you can only run it if that Excel sheet in your Excel on your computer. Only there the Excel will run. So the Excel will not run, at least the VBA code will not run on the cloud version. But this ones here, they will run. So this is also a nice way to migrate those kinds of applications. So we can integrate this like with a contextual panel, so that we can just put him in our web applications, in Outlook too, for example, and also in other products. But we can also use the task panel. The task panel so basically will open something on the right, and we have some examples on this. For example, there is a very good application from Wikipedia that you can just use this as a text panel, and you just search for something, then you just say, yeah, I want that text incorporated in my own text, and you just click in one button and it will just copy your data to inside the Word document. For example, if you're using this on Word, same thing for Excel or for PowerPoint or something like that. So why not to build your own applications in the same way? So that's the goal here. Okay. Oh, all of this, yes, they are based on standards. So open technology like HTML5, JavaScript, CSS, etc. So they're not like a Microsoft thing in here in the back. No, they are really open concepts. You can also run, like on Excel, for example, and PowerPoint, just two examples, embedded content. So I can run my add-in inside, okay, my document inside my Excel. So I can have like some live data coming from somewhere and just create an application for that. When people open this for like a month or 2 months later, this is going to be updated, okay, because like it's live data and things like that. So the good news here, what are the good news on this compared to people that were used to code for SharePoint? I don't know if some of you were or are SharePoint developers from the old school SharePoint. So the thing was that, well, for someone to be a SharePoint developer, yeah, they needed to have very good coding experience, etc., all of that. And then on top of that, they also needed to have a lot of SharePoint experience. So the good news is that basically, if you know web development, general web development, even if it's not Microsoft, okay, even if it's like PHP, JSP, stuff like that, you can also run and create and develop for Office 365. So there is not a reason for you not to be able to develop for Office 365. So benefits of this model: it's safe, it's robust. Okay, the app runs outside my office. Of course, with clear boundaries here in terms of security, all of that. We have a clear and defined API. We are using modern standards. It's device friendly, so the app will run full on Office clients, works on tablets and also smartphones. We already went to this. modern development. So we build this using modern development technologies. Once again, we have the power of the Graph API too that we're going to check next. And of course, flexible tools like HTML5, JavaScript, Azure Visual Studio, and all of those, okay, we can have them here and we can build things in here. So talking about just a small configuration that we need to do. So the app catalog for our add-ins to be able to run on SharePoint. So we just need to go to the SharePoint admin center in the admin portal, then go to the app catalog and we just say, yeah, create a new app catalog. And well, that's it. Okay. And this will just create everything from us. So it's required for us to publish the add-ins. Okay. So talking about one of my favorite services, which is here, that's the Microsoft Graph. So the Microsoft Graph, it's really pretty cool because let's just face it, the user here is in the center. And then I have, okay, what are my messages? Can I get my messages? Yes, you can. So there is an API for you to get your messages. The same thing for tasks, notes from OneNote, etc. So we have a bunch of things that we can just grab, okay, and start to use. But the graph will not only use this, but it also is going to do all the relations that we have between our colleagues, so our co-workers. Like, for example, who is my manager? And I can check, oh, my manager. Okay, now I want to check documents that I have shared with my manager. And there is an API, so there's an endpoint that will give you this. This is the kind of thing that if you have like a regular database or even if it was a REST call, you needed to do what in a regular REST interface? You needed to do some intelligence on your side. So yeah, oh, is my manager? Oh, that's my manager. Okay, then you grab the manager ID. Then you needed to say, oh, I want to check stuff that I'm basically shared with both of us. And another query, and this will come and go with a lot of coming and going from the server to the client. But in here, no. So the graph will just give you this by default. So, and everything will be done using a single endpoint, which is graph.microsoft.com. This is relevant. Then we have this basically this single endpoint. So we have our web application over there, and then we have our graph.microsoft.com. Then we can reach a series of APIs like the users, groups, files, mail, calendar, and tasks, and even more, like to get OneNote files, etc. Because in the old days, we had, for each one of those, we had basically a single endpoint for each one of them. So we had one endpoint for users, other for groups, other for files, etc. So what happened is that because of the authentication, we needed to provide a token for each one of them because the URL is different. Even, yeah, I'm using the same username and password, but the token will be different because the endpoint, okay, was different. So in here, we don't have that problem. So talking about authentication, so we have this, basically, we have a layer here. Oops, something wrong here. So we have our solution on top here that we can, as I already told you, we can even run this on-prem, even in a non-Microsoft server, like a Linux, for example. I can run this on Azure. And then I have my development environment. And for example, I can just do a REST, pure REST call. And I get here, so I don't even need the development environment here. I can just do this through the like Notepad or something like that. But of course, recommended for me is using Visual Studio. And if you're using .NET, for example, we have like the Graph API SDK. So there is an SDK for this. The SDK is pretty cool. It gives you basically simplifies a lot of the actions that we need, especially to create the OpenID Connect and the OAuth token. And all of that is basically simplified over a year with our SDK, but we need to make sure that the features that we want, the Microsoft already have developed them for the SDK, because, well, as you can imagine, they launch the things in the REST endpoint, but then there is a team that needs to provide and just put those features in the SDK. So usually the SDK is a little bit behind what the platform will give you, and Microsoft tries to make this the most fast that you can, but yeah, sometimes we still have some days or weeks that we don't have everything on the SDK. Also, there is an SDK for Android and another for iOS, JavaScript. There are even more than we have on the picture here. Then, of course, using OAuth tokens, we can just grab, and then we can just grab data from the application. Okay, so basically what we get here, a single resource endpoint for all the Microsoft services, and allow us to get all those objects and all those relationships between the objects, simplifies the token acquisition because it's a single endpoint. Okay, and of course, because of those objects and those relations that are already done there. And if you guys use, for example, Delve, basically this in the back it's using the same technology. Of course, this will eliminate the need of the traditional discovery that I was telling you. So, oh, I'm this person, then it was the share with me, with my manager, and then doing a lot of queries to get the same data that we with just one call we can get. So single authentication flow here. So single users will just connect. Sign-in users just connect using Open ID Connect. This will use in the back Microsoft Office. Microsoft Azure AD. So that's what I'm going to do. So I need to register my applications over there. Then I will have a common consent window usually on my applications that I need to be aware. Then I need to basically, my users need to just be aware that I will have those permissions. So all those permissions that I have in here, and they need to accept. Of course, attention, you can do something that we call admin consent, so that your users will not see the window. There are several differences between some users. Okay, so I have some users that they will say, oh no, we really want to make sure that our users know what the application is doing. Others that said, no way, or else they will click cancel, they will not accept, or they will just open a ticket in the support. So it really depends. And the idea is you can do both. Okay, it's totally up to you to decide what do you want. So you need to register your app. Okay, configure the permissions and get administrative consent if you want. Then you get the token, and then there you go. Just use the token to call the Microsoft Graph. All of this seems pretty complicated here, but it's really not. It's pretty transparent for the users. The user just basically uses the UI, and then there we go. It's there. Okay, so let's do a demo here of a tool that's called the Graph. It's called the Graph Explorer. So I'm just using the Graph Explorer here. As you can see, this is this here is the URL of the Graph Explorer. So developer.microsoft.com and then graph and /Graph Explorer. So what we can do in the Graph Explorer, I can sign in, okay, using my Microsoft account, and this will I could sign into my real Office 365 account, or I can just use this one that I'm logged in here in kind of a demo tenant. So if I just issued this for this URL here, so basically I have graph.microsoft.com and then v1, because I'm using the v1 here on Azure, and then me. So if I do this, of course, I will get what? I will get basically my profile. Well, not mine, but the person that Microsoft said it's login, because I'm not using here the sign in with Microsoft thing. And you get the response here. The response, of course, comes in JSON. So, and as you can see in here, so I have my business phone, I have my display name, first name, my job title, my email address, okay, and all the other information that I have. I can go so a little bit. Let's just say I can start to write something more in here, like for example, I want stuff from my manager, so I can just type there manager, and basically I get with my manager. Okay, and so there we go. I can get my manager is basically Diego, and then I have all my profile, the public profile about my my manager. I can also, instead of manager, I can, for example, messages. Okay, I can just run this, and there we go. And this is just too big, but well, just for you guys to understand. So this is an email message. Okay, so all my messages with the sender. Okay, this was the sender from Okay, and then the body, and then you have the content here. So the body is, the type is HTML. Of course, now we just need to, well, basically do an application that can understand this and will basically do something. Okay, something with this. Other stuff that I can do is just grab, for example, my calendar events. So instead of messages to get your calendar, you just need to click here and just say events, and there we go, events. There we go. And if you just run this, you get all the events here. Okay, so that there's really a lot of options and possibilities that I have in here. I can just tell you, for example, one of the solutions that I built with this, it's kind of a training management solution. And so when someone just schedules a training, it just goes to the directory of users and just select, oh, this and this person will be in the training. We can also schedule a training room in the company, so all the rooms are on Office 365 too. There's a trainer who's a trainer, it's this person here, or it's an external trainer. So if it's an external trainer, of course, you have to add the details, the name, etc. But if it's a trainer, a student that is already an employee, well, you already have the data. So why should we create the user again? And we do this all the time in other applications because we have also already all the time applications that, which what I usually call, they are islands of information. Okay, so they are not connected. But in here, we can just do something connected. What happens when someone just then in the end, okay, this is a training and just submits the training. So you get, if you're a student, you will get on your agenda automatically, because you don't even need to approve or something like that. It's automatically, you get the invite, okay, over there in your agenda. And you know that on that day you should go to that training, into that location, etc., because the application will have the right, okay, to do that for you. Also, for example, I can even send an email on your behalf. We can create events on someone's schedule, like I was saying. We can create documents on OneDrive, etc. So in that case, the application starts also to create a team on Microsoft Teams, so that people can share stuff for the training and basically start to connect with all of them. The trainer can share documents on that team. So everything is created because someone on HR that is managing the training just went there and click on new training, and then it just fill in the form and just said okay in the end, and there you go. Okay, we have all that options there. And to be honest, that application is still under development of new features all the time, and it's really just a matter of having some kind of imagination for cool new features. Then to be honest, to be really, oh, we can't do this or we can't do that or something like that. Okay, so it's really just a matter of having or not having that kind of of imagination sometimes. Okay, so just for us to finish here, so we have a bunch of resources. Okay, so all the documentation and samples about the graph, you can just go to graph.microsoft.com and you will find it. We can also find it on Stack Overflow with those keywords on Twitter. If you just type Microsoft Graph, the hashtag, or Office 365 Dev, there is always people that are monitoring those hashtags, and they will help you. Then I will give you like some links here, okay, with some more training videos and hands-ons about the graph too, and then the developer program that I already talked about it. And basically, you have a free 1 year developer subscription. And to be honest, my subscription has been renewed every year, so I already have it for a few years now. And every year I get basically it gets renewed. So it's something that Microsoft is really keeping updated, and it's not going to take you away that for you. So it's pretty cool things. And of course, then you also have some tools and some videos, webinars too that Microsoft does, etc. Pretty good experience what you have there. To engage with this, so we also have a bunch of other options, like with the Twitter Office Dev, the Office 365 network also. There's a lot of options that we have in here. Okay, So as a closing, okay, I would just like to say thank you all for allowing me to bore you now this afternoon, this morning, depending when you are. So my name is Tiago, and this is how you can start to create applications for Office 365. I hope that someday I will return here and with some more deep dive content and with something that we can just, for example, use the graph or something like that. If you feel that is important, just ask the company, and we'll try to bring you another webinar about this. Okay, thank you very much.
There's a couple questions that have been asked.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
There's
let me just check questions.
that you need to answer.
Yeah. Okay, so I have an attendee that says that, yeah, this is pretty cool, but he wants also to connect to on-prem data. So yeah, you can also connect to your solutions to on-prem data. So my recommendation will be for you to develop some kind of REST API, and then you can just consume your REST API, because you can consume it through, for example, through JavaScript or client-side, basically client-side technology, and that will work pretty well. Okay, oops, let me just check here. The next one. Differences between Microsoft 365 versus, okay, so Microsoft 365 is just basically an umbrella of products that Microsoft has that also includes Office 365, but also includes Windows 10 and Intune. So there is not a big difference for what we are talking here today, because everything that you can do in here, you can also do on Microsoft 365 on, of course, the Office 365 part of the Microsoft 365. Okay, and I think we had, yeah, they were talking about if we can record. Yeah, it was recorded. Yeah, I think everything is done.
I think you got it.
Yeah. Don't know if someone has more questions. Yeah, I think we can, there is no more questions, so I think we can close the webinar. Thank you everyone for attending, and hope to see you soon again.